You've had a couple of serious engine situations in your decades of flying, including one in a warbird.
Right.
How'd that play out?
Really well from my standpoint. I had a total engine failure in a Douglas Dauntless, a SBD,
Oh, wow.
a Wright 1820 1200 horsepower engine.
Yep.
And was able to glide to a glider strip that was how appropriate. I'm in a big glider and I'm gliding to the glider strip,
right.
but it was a grass strip just outside DeLand, Florida, and it happened to be in the perfect place at the perfect time.
Right.
And and I was able to get the gear down and land the airplane. And a lot of lessons to be taken from that one. The most basic thing that I had going for me in that situation was that I was at pretty high altitude. I was at 10,000 feet when the engine started to fail, and I was in contact with ATC.
Yeah.
And ATC was super helpful in guiding me down. I was actually planning to go to DeLand, and they vectored me to there. There was another private strip that was closer, and they advised me against that one because they weren't sure of the condition or the services available. And at that time the engine was running; it was running rough, but I pretty much had DeLand in sight, and it was only. It was only when it was about 5 miles away that the engine completely quit, and it was and then it became obvious that I was not going to get to DeLand. But fortunately, there was this nice green open patch of grass right beneath. And another sort of lesson is that airplanes don't glide nearly as well as their published glide speeds. Because I remember I read the book on the Dauntless. I knew the best glide speed. It was complicated in this situation by the fact that it had these dummy bombs. There was a display airplane, so it had bombs and all sorts of things strapped to the bottom of it that you couldn't jettison. So there really wasn't a good published best glide speed for it.
Right.
But I knew in the ballpark what it was, and it's like, wow, that airplane is descending at an incredible rate when flying that speed. Perhaps I should speed up.
Yeah.
And then there's another thing that I hadn't anticipated in that situation where it was right in the base turn, and it felt like some giant being had reached out and grabbed the nose of that airplane and was twisting it, and it's like, and I just remember thinking at the time, why is this airplane trying to stall and spin? And I remember that I had almost full left aileron, full top rudder, and your hands and feet just kind of do what's necessary. Right. But I'm thinking, why is this necessary? And it was a kind of windy day. Wind was blowing about gusting to about 20 knots out of the northeast, and I thought, is it? I'm getting kind of near the trees. Is this a sort of turbulence from the trees? And then it went away and landed the airplane. And it was only much later, when we were on the ground and looking at the airplane itself, that we noticed that the crankshaft was twisted like a Tootsie Roll. I mean, it was.
Wow.
And what had happened was when the engine seized and that 12-foot diameter prop stopped, it had this gigantic twisting, turning moment. Right. on the airframe, which it was quite pronounced at the time, but it was I'd never heard of that before. It was only later in looking back on it that it made any kind of sense.
Yeah. All right. So in other words, I guess takeaway is that every flight is an opportunity to learn, and some you learn more than others.
Right. And the flight following was just key to the good outcome in that one.
Yeah.
ATC couldn't have been more helpful.
Yeah. All right.